A writer cannot. So, well, here's the thing and about the elephant not liking ambiguity. So, look at the middle symbol. When you look at it across, horizontally, what do you see? ABC. When you look at it vertically, what do you see? Well, exactly, and it's the same symbol. So, if you saw that symbol in isolation, probably 50% of the time, the elephant would be wrong. But the elephant doesn't know that it's wrong. Its job is to make coherence. So it's not going to say, could be a B, could be a 13. It's going to look at the context and very quickly come up with the answer, which is terrific, because if we had to think out every letter that we saw that looked a little odd, we'd never read anything. So the elephant is very quick at that, but it makes mistakes. So half the time, it could be completely wrong about what that symbol is in the middle. Okay, so that's a little bit about the elephant and the writer. So your job as a mediator, to try and get the people to be more like the case A people, that is, to get the people calm and in a good mood, you need to become elephant whisperers. That is, you need to be able to communicate with all the elephants of all the participants in your room when you mediate. Because you can't, has anybody ever gone to the doctor? I'll tell you, I went to the eye doctor years and years ago when they were doing a test of the pressure of my eye, and they were putting a needle on my eye, and I was just a nervous wreck. This was at the optometry school, and so I had a student doctor who was not very good, and he kept yelling at me, "Calm down, this isn't working." Well, and as you can imagine, that did not work. You can't yell at somebody to calm down. So, but what I'm going to suggest to you are 6 different ways that you can communicate and really whisper to the elephant. So, the first is calmness.
Sorry.
What?
Sorry.
No, I skipped over on purpose. Okay, so the first is calmness. How many of you have some kind of ritual or something that you do before a mediation to get yourself calm? And would you want to share what you do?
I just I do one. The first section of second is remember my God and say that.
And remember your God? You remember your God?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so she meditates for a moment and remembers her God before going into the mediation, which then calms and centers her. Yes, because it turns out that mood is incredibly contagious. So if you are calm and centered, the parties will catch your calmness and your centeredness. So it is really, really important that you have some mechanism for going into that mediation and being the source of calm rather than the source of agitation and tension. And one of the horrible things about mood being contagious is bad moods are more contagious than good moods. So you're going to have to work a little harder to make sure that your good mood is what they catch and not that their bad mood is what you catch. It's also true that the most powerful person in the room is often the source of the contagion. So you as the authority figure, you as the mediator are the person who really gets to set the emotional tone for the whole mediation. So it's really professionally incumbent upon you to develop practices to make sure that when you walk into that room, you are the source of calm. What I want you, how many of you have a meditation practice? Okay, good, quite a few of you. And I'm sure that you may know that you don't actually even have to have the world's most extensive meditation process. For meditation to have an effect on your brain. Studies have shown that people who have never meditated before, who meditate 20 minutes a day for 5 days, only 5 days, 20 minutes a day, have changed their own brains. And people who meditate regularly are able to regulate their own emotions, be more self-aware, and actually have more immunities to disease, but that's not really relevant to our topic, but it seems like it's another extra handy bonus that's thrown in there. So I highly recommend that if you do not have a meditation practice, that you develop one. Okay, the next is social bonding. So it turns out that when we are connected, Howard's writing me notes, when we are connected with each other on a real level, our brains release oxytocin and another neuropeptide that are essentially pleasure hormones. That is, when we connect emotionally with another human being, we change our brain chemistry and we put ourselves in a better mood. So many of you have talked about the importance of connecting with the parties. I don't know if you remember Lila yesterday, was it only yesterday? At lunch with Joel, the day was that yesterday or the day before? On your culture talk.
2 days ago.
2 days ago, I've so lost track. But Lila said to Joel, well, look, isn't it, the culture stuff is important, but what seems most important to me is that I just connect with every person that comes in. Well, that's exactly right. And she may not have been referring to it in terms of what it does chemically, but the fact is that connection alters her and it alters the person that she's connecting with. So people who can, connect with each other are able to be in a better mood. Okay, the next is cultivating values. So I asked you when we first started out to write down some important values, either personal values or professional values. Well, it turns out that when people are connected to what matters to them most, they are de-stressed. So I'm just going to tell you briefly about this one exercise, this one experiment that was done by social science researchers at the University of California at Los Angeles, where they asked people to do a slightly more complex exercise than you did. They were asked to list their 10 most important values and then reduce it to 5, which is actually really hard because it's kind of like throwing out one of your children. But it asks people to really focus on what their values are. And then it had a controlled group that was not asked to do this values exercise. And then they put them in front of They tried to imagine the most stressful thing they could put these people through. And so they had them get up in front of a heckling audience and count backwards from 2000 by 13. And so an extremely stressful event for folks. The people who had done the values exercise showed significantly fewer markers of stress. Oh, and they were all wired up to get their pulse rate and whether they were perspiring. And the people who had done the values exercise showed significantly fewer stress responses. So if you can, first of all, connect with your own values, like this woman here said, she meditates on her God before she goes in. Well, what is more important to her than her faith? So for yourself to be in touch with your values, but to figure out in the process of convening the mediation or working with people, can you somehow help them to invoke their most important values, because that will help them be in touch with who they are and be inherently less stressed. The next thing, and this is great because this is just what Rebecca talked with us about a little earlier, is be curious. Curiosity is when people are curious, they cannot be judgmental, and they cannot be, it's harder to be stressed because when you are curious, you are engaging fully your prefrontal cortex, and it makes it much harder for the amygdala, which is the source of many of our negative emotions, to be active. So ask yourself, If you know, like Rebecca was suggesting, if you're judgmental about somebody, ask yourself, what is it about this person that I don't understand? And you will immediately stop being judgmental. And if you can figure out ways to work with the parties to have them be curious about the other side, well, you know, you could ask them, well, what's one thing you would really like to understand about what happened here from their perspective? Or what's one thing that you don't really understand about the other side that you might want to know? And then it turns out that just the act for them of asking that question that they will do in response doesn't even matter what the answer is. The process of asking that question changes their brains and makes them de-stressed. Cooperation also changes the brain. What I have done now in my mediations is I always try to start off with some sort of exercise that allows the parties to cooperate. I move around a bit. I mediate all over the western states in the US, and I'm often in places that are unfamiliar. So the rooms aren't set up the way I'd like, and so I have people move the furniture, and they move the furniture together. Or if we're having lunch, I'll have one side take the other side's lunch order. I'll have us make an agenda together when we start out. What are all the things that we need to look at here today in order to get a resolution? I don't make them agree on it because they probably won't agree on it, but they're all looking together and they're cooperating in this joint effort. And the last thing is cookies. How many of you bring food to your mediations? Oh, and then I know the centers provide food. Well, there's the obvious breaking bread together. So food as a metaphor of bringing people together. It helps physiologically because it helps with their blood sugar, but also people feel cared for when you're providing for them. They feel safe and they feel trusting. So Howard and I always bring food to the mediations that we do. And we have a little diagnostic now. If you bring food and nobody thanks you, the case won't settle. So try it and see. Sometimes if they come in and nobody thanks me, I just want to send them out and say, you know, this is going to be a waste of time. But so try it, and I'll be interested in your responses with that. So these are 6 things that you can do: calm, connection, cultivating values, cooperation, cookies, and one more. And social bonding. So try all of these. See if, you know, in the next few minutes you can think of ways that you can implement some of these things. And I do believe I'm completely over my time, so thank you.
Could I get this?
No, my name's Joe. Sorry. Okay, let's go. For my next song, okay. So, folks, let me ask you all a question. How are you feeling right now? Are you feeling good? Yes. Yes, really? Really? Because it's close to lunch. I know you're hungry, exactly, right? So, I know. Anyone brought the cookies? All right. You know, I can make this long, make it short, but I'm going to make this hopefully, sort of useful and helpful. Let me ask you this question. We visited the mediation center the other day, and I was gobsmacked. I don't know if that's a term that's used there. I was very surprised to see that you had a meditation room, right? And now I know that we joke about mediation and meditation, but I mean, seriously, I thought it was a spelling error. No, you have a meditation room, right? And it's to allow you guys to, and I think that one of the mediators I was talking to, you basically said, we actually have kind of like meditation classes, or was it with you? Meditation sessions? But with someone else, right? And I was thinking, that is so cool, right? So let me ask you all a question, folks. How many of you in this room, when you have mediated, or when you're in the process of mediating a dispute, and the parties start fighting and shouting, how many of you actually feel the stress? Because if you don't, you guys are exceptional, right? Yeah? How many of you, even before you go into the room and you know that it's going to be a contentious sort of case, how many of you already sort of practice getting stressed? Yeah, me too, right? Right? And it's kind of one of those things. How many of you, because in mediation training we always say, if you're talking to one party, you need to pay attention to the other party as well, right? Yeah, yeah. How many of you find that incredibly difficult to do? I mean, you've only got two eyes, right? And unless you can make your eyes go this way, it's kind of tough, right? So, what I like to do, because I like to commend meditation to you, and we call this meditation and mediation. I come from a martial arts background, and some of you here may do something called Tai Chi. I don't know if you know Tai Chi, or maybe you do it or not. Tai Chi is sometimes referred to as moving meditation. You have Chai Chi, I get it. And I actually know it's called a spoonerism. The other thing that we do is that everything can be meditative. So let me ask you all a question. Some of you are sitting there right now, you're thinking to yourself, all right, I hope this is going to be useful. Is it going to be lunch? Man, this has been a long 4 days. It's been great. I'm bored. I'm itchy. Folks, if you have either a bottle or pen in your hand, something small, or a coin, or a wallet, something like, could you just take that out for a moment? Not too large, right? Not too large. And nothing that's too breakable, right? Okay. I'd like you, at your seats, to take whatever you're holding. I'd like you to toss it up in the air, and I'd like you to catch it with the same hand. Go ahead and do that right now. I can